Ian Moyse, welcome to the Human Capital Innovations podcast.
Good to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have the opportunity to talk with you today. We've had a good opportunity to get to know each other and discuss things in preparation for the episode today. And it's going to be a lot of fun talking about personal, professional branding and how some of those principles can lead us to greater success in the workplace. As
Sure.
we launch the discussion today, I just wanted to share Ian's bio with the listeners. Ian Moyse is a EMEA sales director for Natterbox and a longtime sales leader and business advisor. He has sat on the boards of a number of industry bodies, such as FAST, the Federation Against Software Theft, CIF, Cloud Industry Forum, and EuroCloud, and as a non-exec to various firms. He was awarded the accolade of BESMA UK Sales Director of the Year, and in 2019 was listed in the top 50 sales keynote speakers by Top Sales World. Ian was rated #1 cloud influencer on Analytica and has been recognized as a leading cloud blogger, listed in the EMEA Top 50 Influencers in Data Centers, Cloud and Data 2017, and Top 50 Cloud Computing Blogs of 2020. Really great background, and it brings to the table your expertise in the areas not only of sales generally, but in personal sales and branding, which I think is going to be really important for my listeners as they think about both their own professional branding to drive their careers, but also as they're thinking about their interactions with colleagues in the workplace and understanding the approach to personal branding that others around them are also taking, and how to deal with all of that kind of context in that space. As we get started, anything else about yourself that you would like to share by way of background?
I think you kindly covered enough there. More so that what I've learned, I guess, in personal branding, social selling, has been through actually doing it, practitioner, and learning the hard way, not all theory in a book in a cupboard, and I'm just now spouting it. I've had to make mistakes and learn this through necessity of remaining relevant and successful in business.
Yeah, thank you for that. I do hope that this will be a really practitioner-oriented, very practical kind of a discussion, and I appreciate that expertise, that lived expertise that you bring with you to the conversation. It's great to have thought leadership out there by way of things like podcasts or books or other information that you can consume, but putting it into practice and going through the school of hard knocks and just trying to figure out how to make it work and how to be successful. That's where the rubber meets the road, and where we'll really truly find whether or not we are successful. There's lots of people who have a lot of great knowledge, not as many people who can put it into practice. So yeah. I'm excited to start this discussion. Given the current pandemic environment, I'm curious your general thinking and experience around how this has shifted things, how you see things have changed or in the midst of changing in terms of sales and just dealing with the pandemic.
Yeah, so I think it's interesting. Today I heard the first words of COVID 2.0, people talking about the next wave, which is an interesting name, right? But we've all become more of a digital society anyway, right? Because of the nature of smartphones, social media, electronic devices proliferating in our everyday lives, Internet of Things, etc. So we've changed, and this is how I got into this, I guess. We'll context it from here and answer to your question. The buyer dynamic had already changed. Us as buyers, when I talk to a physical audience, which hopefully will happen again, I always point out that whatever your role is, if you're salespeople, you're also buyers in your everyday lives of consumable devices, of things in business, and the way you behave has changed based on the environment we're now in over the years. Because you can now research a product or service or individual within seconds using the internet. Before that was available, you'd invite a salesperson in and say, show me your wares, present to me, tell me stuff, tell me about your company, tell me about you from scratch, because I don't know hardly anything. Now it's, I know all that stuff, and I know what my questions are. My questions are all the gaps, and I want to question you about stuff that I've self-educated on and read. So the dynamics change, right? So as a seller, you've already had to change to a degree to adapt to the world and environment that we're in. What I think's just changed, to answer your question around what's happened, is it's been accelerated. We are now a digital first environment, right? Even if I was talking to you, John, about selling you something or having a meeting to present something to you, even if I wanted to come and see you, now the opportunity's virtually been taken away. So it would be done electronically. So we've all been forced into this screen world of talking to each other. We've all become familiar, whether it be Zoom, Google Hangouts, Microsoft Teams, etc. There's a plethora of these platforms. It's become the norm. We've seen it on the talent shows, the judges judging from their homes and doing this online. We've seen it in the chat shows, etc. The game's changed, and it's been forced upon us. So what I propose has just been changed is, now you don't even have the option. Your interaction, often first interaction, I've engaged with many customers during this period, or many prospective customers who have since become customers, which, due to the nature of the engagement and the scale of what they were doing, I would have absolutely, my salesperson would have met, I'd have gone and met in normal days, and we've done it all over cameras, and it's been acceptable. And it's been acceptable to have kids running around or dogs barking, because it's an environment we've been forced into. So we've all become more adaptable and acceptable. But the thing to understand also is that has changed how we interact. So I would challenge, the first impression now is digital, right? I'm not going to come in and meet you in your office, and I might have checked you out on LinkedIn, but shake your hand and I'm going to build rapport in person. And I'm not going to be able to look around your office and see the picture of the sailing boat. Go, oh, do you like sailing by any chance? Yeah. Where'd you go? Oh, we go to the Solent. Oh, I grew up down near there. You're not going to have that piece in the natural environment. You're going to have to do it electronically. So what I've suggested to people is, you've got to think about, people are more likely to check you out as an individual electronically now. Because it's the only way they're going to get that peripheral view. B, an easy one is that I could be doing it on you now, John, right? I could, my hands vanish, and oh, there's LinkedIn at the side. You can't see what's going on. Oh, what's he said about that? So anyone listening to this, think, how many have you been on any of these web discussions or group discussions where you've checked something out online, where you've been talking to people, because they can't tell, they can't notice, right? You can see a reflection of my glasses a little bit, but you can't really see if I flip that screen. So the likelihood that you will be checked out has gone up, and the likelihood you'll be checked out has also gone up because of the following. If I come into your office and you're called down to meet with me, you might have thought, oh, I'll check in out beforehand, but I was at the coffee machine, there was oh, I'll go to, you don't do it. Right now, I bet anything, before you called me, John, you sat down there comfortably, maybe got a cup of tea, a coffee. That's what people do. They'll, oh, I've got a call at this time. I'll go and sit down and get set up ready, and I'm there a few minutes early. And actually, while I'm here in front of my screen, it's more likely they're going to check you out. So you need to think about your personal brand. You need to think about what they may find. I'd also challenge it. We're in a time when, unfortunately, there is a hugely increased market of people this has affected negatively, who will now be on the job market, whether they're furloughed now into that position or already in that position. It is going to be more competitive than ever. And one of the contributory factors will be your online persona, and what people find about you or don't find about you, and how you come across when they check you out electronically. Again, the interview often may be like this now. And guess what? If they didn't check you out before, they will now, because they've got the opportunity to. And they've been more educated into this environment. So the game's changed, right? The game has accelerated. And I suggest, people say it's unfair, they shouldn't check me out online, they should take me at what I am. You can argue it's unfair, but it's irrelevant.
Yeah,
If they're going to do
exactly.
it, make a judgment. You can't control what they're going to do. You can control what they find and the impression they get.
Yeah, exactly. It is irrelevant. It just is. It's what's happening. And I completely agree that we're just being accelerated towards this. We already saw this trend, where, I think of it from like an HR organizational leadership perspective. If I'm recruiting and hiring people and going through the hiring process, you mentioned the labor supply issues right now. It's going to be more competitive. It's going to be harder. It already was quite difficult, and now it's just becoming even harder. And so, for me as a recruiter or as a leader, hiring manager going through the process, of course, in the past I would be inclined to Google the person, to go check out their LinkedIn, maybe see if there's anything on like Facebook or other social media, to see if there are any red flags. I think that was becoming more and more common practice. But what you're saying, I think, is absolutely true, that what was becoming more common practice before is becoming completely commonplace now. Like everyone's just doing it. And
Yeah.
so you have to have a good online presence, period. If you don't, you're simply not going to make the cut, even for those initial discussions, even for an initial round of interviews. And so, for anyone who's listening, if you're thinking about your next career move, or maybe you got laid off because of COVID or furloughed and you're looking for your next opportunity, right now is the chance for you to really fine tune and hone your online persona, to demonstrate your expertise, and to make sure that all of that is portrayed in a really effective way. It's not enough to have a polished resume. You do want a good resume, but you need to have really polished online presence. And if
We'll
you
also,
don't, go
yeah,
ahead.
we'll also think about it this as well, if I may interrupt and say, is it's not just about having it, it's by lack of it or lack of care for it, what message does it send to the viewer that you're not up, how up to date are you understanding that we're living in a digital world, right? It makes you seem irrelevant, that you don't understand what's going on and you haven't adjusted to the world that we're in. So it's not just the fact it's not there, it's the fact that, well, actually, does this individual, how's this individual realized the world's changed, and how have they stepped up to the mark? How are they demonstrating to me they're in the digital game and they get it and they get the world's changed, but they're doing that, and they've agility wise adjusted, right? Or so if you end up, either you won't get to the interview and you'll never get told and realize that's the problem, or if you do and someone, what would you say if someone said, why haven't you put a profile picture on, or why did you choose, why did you choose that profile picture, right? You need to have an answer for that. Oh, I just thought I looked good in it, or it's my wedding photos, because I had the most beautiful makeup. And well, so you need to think about what questions might you get that will and what they're doing, it's not just challenging the facts, it's challenging your character in a digital world.
Yes, absolutely. I completely agree with that. And um, so we're saying all this because it truly is an opportunity, and people like you, with your expertise, you can help uh, individuals think through their online first impression. You can help them think about their personal branding, their professional branding, in a way that can really help them maximize. Now, I take myself for example. I have a pretty robust online presence. I've put some attention into that, but I also don't. I'm not like, this isn't what I do, and so I'm not actually sure that I do it all that effectively. I do put time into it, and I hope it's better than not. And hopefully there aren't red flags, and hopefully I'm not shooting myself in the foot. But the truth of the matter is, I don't actually really know. I've been intentional, but I don't actually really know unless I talk to someone who has the expertise to help me understand how things come across to people who might come, but happen by my LinkedIn profile, or go to my professional page on my company website, or at my faculty page at the university. What will they be looking for? What would they expect to see? And how am I portraying myself in a way that will fit with those expectations? That's what we all need to be thinking about. And I
Absolutely.
suspect that there are many things I could do to improve, in that regard. So I think all of us have that opportunity.
Yeah, and the good about it is this is not something where you have the excuse to say, yeah, but it costs a lot of money. I have to go and spend this or subscribe to this. The social platforms are free. But yes, there are paid extra bits you can do, but the fundamentals are free. All it takes is some of your time and you caring, and a lot of it. And I'm still learning, and I'm still spotting things I adjust, and I'm still improving. Is a lot of it for me is plagiarizing the good. No one's got a copyright on some of the techniques, right? And I will talk about maybe some hacks in a second. It's just knowing, oh, okay, that's a good idea. I could do that, and how to do it, and off you go. And 10 minutes here, 20 minutes there, and you've just made an improvement.
Yeah, and I think that's a really great point, and that's been really the only trick, if we call it a trick, that I've used, because I don't actually know, what I'm doing, but I just look around. I spend a little bit of time on LinkedIn, and I look at other people's profiles, and I'm like, oh, they seem to have really good online engagement. It seems like they have lots of people commenting on their posts, or they that looks really professional. I don't actually know that that's the most professional way to do it, but it sure seems like it is. And so I start to mimic, and I can pull in
Yeah.
some of the aspects of what they're doing. Now, there's some trial and error there, of course, and I may not always get it right, but at least you're making the attempt, right? And to your point earlier, it's demonstrating something bigger than just whatever happens to be in your profile. It's showing your willingness to engage with the digital world in the reality that we're in right now, and that you're not completely clueless to what we're dealing with here, in this current interconnected global
Yeah.
digital environment.
Well, the first things are, let's get some hacks. The useful stuff, right? So firstly, anyone that's listening that hasn't got a profile picture, first faux pas of the lot, if you come up in a search of profiles, then it just stands out as negative and it doesn't grab your attention anyway. So you've got to have a picture, and also a banner if it's on LinkedIn. So what I always say to people is use what the platform allows you to use. If it lets you put an image with a background banner, don't use the defaults in anything, because that says, well, you look like anyone else that's used the defaults, therefore your profiles look exactly the same. The fact it lets you change it says change it. Check your photo out. Test your photo. There's a website called Photo Feeler I recommend an awful lot, and you can test your photo. So when I present and speak at events on this, I show a slide, and here's a photo, and here's a different photo of me, but they're virtually the same, right? Except glasses, not glasses. They're professionally done photos I had at a company. And I used to use one without glasses for vanity's sake. Hey, can't see much, right? But look, but it just struck me. I came across this site by accident, as sometimes these things happen. Actually, that's interesting. So I tested the without glasses. I then tested the with. You either pay a few dollars, or you can go on and rate other people's photos. You don't know who they are. All you see is a photo, and you rate them for, I think it's influence, trustworthiness, etc. A few criteria. Click, 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 click. You get some points. You can get yours done for free. There you go. And it takes minutes. So I tested those two photos, and with glasses, and if you looked at it, it's the same photo. My ratings, apparently, if I do this, I'm incredibly more trustworthy. And it wasn't a 2 or 3% jump, it was about a 30% jump. Right? So I changed the photo. That's why you'll find I use a photo at this point in time, wearing glasses, looking in a certain direction, because I also tested the photo each way, flipped it. I've got some new photos I'm going to test as well. I write a blog on this, but who knew? And the key there is you have to test the photo. That does not mean with glasses, if you did it, John, it would come out the same. It means for my face in that photo had that impact on people who didn't know me. So the great is the Photo Feeler tests the reaction of people, first impression of this photo. Do you think they look this, this, and this? Right? There's no context. There's no where you're from. There's no job title. It's first, and that's what you get on social, whether you like it or not. That's what humans work that way. We're visual, and we make a first impression. You see someone walk through a door, and you've got your brain's made a first micro impression. Now, when you get to talk to them, you're like, oh, actually, I thought they looked really bullish and arrogant when they walked in, but actually, a really nice person. You adjust. But on social, you don't get that adjustment, right? If you're particularly if people are flipping through CVs, again, whether you like it or not, they'll flip. And it'll be a quick, oh, their brain will say, like, trust, don't, whatever, all on the photo. So test the photo, right? In your bio, try and make it a bit personal. You know, I need to improve mine a little bit there, but in mine, I talk about, you know, I got into computing at age 14 because. It's a little bit of a, like I'm chatting to you and telling you a backstory. You ask me a question. It's a little bit of a story. It's not chapter and verse, but it's not, I do this for a living and I'm agile and energetic, and everyone writes that, right? People remember stories. Show them who you are. Try and use this electronic medium to be a person. So you just got to think about it a little bit different, but none of it's rocket science. None of it costs you any different, apart from thinking and a little bit of effort, but it can make a massive difference. I've just helped an individual who contacted me and said, could you help my profile? And didn't do any rocket science on it. And to me, it was just run of the mill. But when I'd finished and I compared and she looked at her profile, I was like, oh my gosh, it just jumps out of the screen. But it was all using the standard stuff. It's just I've got habitual into doing that. But I'm still learning. I'm still improving, always looking for what's new, what can I do to continually keep my presence more professional.
Yeah, that's right. I think it's a matter of, if we keep a growth mindset and we keep a continual learning mindset, that applies to different aspects of our career. I think, you know, and just finding success in life and finding success in work. But when it comes to personal branding, it's not static. Like the goalpost moves. And so if you're
Yeah.
not able to keep up with the times and make some adjustments, you know, what was a really great LinkedIn profile 5 years ago, probably, if kept the same, wouldn't be a great profile today. So
Yeah, and I've looked back at my old one, to be honest, because you can take, there was ways I had grabs that I'd used for presentations and stuff on this, and I must admit I've looked back at stuff and gone, why did I do it that way then?
yeah, yeah, excellent. Well, those are some great tips. Any other thoughts on, in terms of managing that digital first impression, how to enhance and increase your professional personal brand?
Yeah, so the other one to do, and you mentioned it, I think, in terms of a particular recruiter doing a search, is do a search on yourself. How many people haven't done that, right? Do a search on yourself in Google. Do it in someone else's PC or an incognito browser. Don't do it in your normal one, because what you get in there is you're logged in already on profiles and it knows who you are and your history. So you'll get a skewed view. You want to see what would Joe Blogs out there, Sue Blogs, what would, if they did a random search, what would they find on me? So you've got to do it from that. So grab a friend's PC or tablet, whatever, or your phone. Do a search in Google and see what comes up. And don't search 50 pages, right? Because no one's going to, but certainly look through the first 5 or 10 and just glance and just see, is there anything that appears that if it was a recruiter or a prospective customer saw it, you would feel, first impression? Because often what I find, particularly Facebook, sometimes Instagram, but particularly Facebook, people have posted things that they don't realize are going to appear in a Google search because they haven't done it. They've used the default profile, and the default profile of all these social platforms is open, which means they get indexed and anyone can get to it. Well, that if you do lots of pictures where you go out drinking with your mates and there's lots of drunken pictures, nothing wrong with that. But there might be if the first person seeing it has no impression of you, doesn't know what you're like, and they found 5 pictures of you and 4 of them of you out drunk. Is this someone we want representing us as a lawyer, for example? We all know we have a life, right? But what you've done is publish that life to the general domain of that person might be representing us. So there's a simple one. Just check, and if you see stuff you shouldn't, lock your Facebook profile down to friends and family and connected to you. Then anyone not connected to you isn't going to get all that stuff. Control what people see about you. That's the key. The beauty of social media is we all have a global voice where we can become an influencer. We can share our wares with the world cheaply, fast, simply, without technical skills. The negative is we can all do exactly the same things. We can all those things I just said are also the negative, because you can do it and not think about what you're doing. So think about, you need to control who sees and what they see of you, because that is your personal digital brand.
Yeah, and along with that, it just adds to potentially the noise that's out there, right? We have just so much information, so much content out there because people can just easily share anything that they want. And so we constantly have to be thinking about, how do we cut through the noise? How do we make our profile stand out? How do we make sure that other people would pay attention to us, and that we have something meaningful to say that would be impactful? So I love all those tips, and I'm personally going to go back through my LinkedIn and review, considering some of the things you just said. As we wrap up today, I just wanted to give you a chance to share with the listeners how they can get in touch with you, learn more about what you're doing, and perhaps reach out if they feel like they need this help.
Sure, and thanks, John. And that's a perfect segue into another hack. So if you want to find me on social, I'm on all the platforms because I need to understand which ones to do. But I always suggest be on the ones that are most important to you and do them well. Don't boil the ocean. But I'm on all of them. But the key to reach me on are, if you go to ianmoyse.co.uk or ianmoyse.cloud, that will take you directly to my LinkedIn and my Twitter profile. So I've just created another trick I learned. Got my own domain names. I've got them for all my social profiles. Costs a few bucks a year, and I just reroute them to LinkedIn and Twitter. So anywhere I appear in an article or anything, I don't say put LinkedIn / who's going to rekey that, right? So just put ianmoyse.co.uk, and I can also remember it and tell you straight away, and you as the audience don't have to go onto the platform and then search for my name. Luckily, I've got a reasonably distinctive name, but if I was Paul Smith, imagine saying, go on LinkedIn and search for Paul Smith. Good luck. You're now making your viewer spend 10 minutes trying to figure out which one's the right profile. Oh, no, search for Paul Smith of this company and make sure it's this one and this one. It doesn't make, so it's an easy way of stepping the game up, right? How good would that look in a CV or profile? But they click on, they see the link, that looks professional, crikey, click on it and go straight to your profile. Again, it stands out, makes you different in a professional manner. Very cheap, very easy.
Excellent. Thank you. That's another wonderful tip. And I really do hope that listeners will reach out and get connected with Ian. Ian, it has been a real pleasure talking with you. And I hope everyone stays healthy and safe, and that they have a wonderful week.